Jill Strauss is the proud mom of a wonderful little girl named Vada. They live in Ontario, Canada, and on this episode, Jill shares with me how her and her husband figured out that their beautiful baby girl had 22q. It wasn't until she was 4 years old that they finally received the results from their microarray test confirming of the diagnosis. Within this episode, Jill and I laugh, cry, and share the struggles of what it's like being a 22q parent. I'm so honored for you to get to meet Jill and hear about Vada's 22q journey. Welcome to 22q Podcast. My name is Becky White, and today I am so thrilled to have Jill with us today. She is a 22q mom, and she is here to share her story. So Jill, thank you so much for being on today, and please introduce yourself.
Hi, Becky. Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this. I love listening, so I hope I have something great to share as well. I have a daughter who is 7 years old with 22q 11.2 deletion syndrome. I have a son who is 9. He'll be 10 this summer, which I cannot believe, entering those double digits. And we live in Ontario, Southern Ontario in Canada. I'm a teacher. I've been off on a leave for a few years, and I also started my own home staging and design business. So yeah.
Nice. That's really interesting. How did you get involved with that?
I took a leave from work, and obviously my family does keep me busy, but I realized I needed to explore more of my creative side and have an outlet for that again. I used to do a lot of creative stuff. Design has always been something near and dear to my heart. My husband and I have flipped homes, and so I've always done this, but to create a business out of it, it did happen organically. So I just kind of went with it, and it's been a very good creative outlet for me, and I would say even a piece of mental health care. Yeah.
Have you always been artistic and had that niche?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. I've always enjoyed kind of taking things to the next level. Even in teaching, everyone would laugh and joke that my classrooms were like the Pinterest classroom, all themed out. So I've always been into theater and art kind of things, scrapbooking, design.
Yeah. And what grades were you teaching before?
I've taught primary, kindergarten, grade 2, 3, and special education.
Okay. So you weren't necessarily getting that artistic itch, if you want to say it, that you have with teaching, if it wasn't an art class or a music class or, yeah. Oh, that's so great. I'm so glad that you were able to find that outlet. How did that happen? Did you guys flip a house and then you said, wow, I really love the design piece? How'd that happen?
Yeah. So we were flipping houses and I was doing all of the design and I really enjoyed it. I was also teaching at the time. So it was a lot. Then my husband went into real estate and I started staging his homes. Yeah. And then I took these past 2 years off of teaching to focus on our daughter, Vada, and her needs, and just to be more available and flexible with appointments. And I needed to have more of my cup full for her. So the first year was very good for that. And then in this past year, I realized I needed a little bit something for myself. So I opened it up to the public and it just kind of snowballed and I've just been going with it. So it's been fun.
That is not easy to do. And I know for myself, even it's not easy to recognize when your cup is overflowing and you need to make a change and you know that what you need to do, but in order to take that first step, it's super scary. So good for you for just noticing that. And that's not easy to do. And how do you feel that change has been on yourself and your family now that you kind of step back from teaching? It
was needed. It's been good. So I have taken off 3 non-consecutive years. The first year I took off, that's when I started advocating and really pushing to find out what was going on with Vada. And it became a part-time job on top of my teaching job. I was teaching with a vulnerable group of students. So it was a lot. So I did take off that year, and that's when we did get her diagnosis. And then these past 2 years, it's been, yeah, I think I went back for a year and then I realized I love this and I put everything into teaching, but I'm not having what I need when I come home. So at that time, I think, yeah, that first year was great. And then I really did focus on my own mental health. And I think realizing so many people, it's hard to look at what's going on and saying I'm doing too much, because I think that's the culture of parenting today. Work, 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 work-life balance is no balance. Some months are harder, some days are harder, some years are harder with one or the other. But I was really looking at what was going on and how I was feeling. And I realized I just can't give all of my energy to all of these different areas every day. So yeah, I think that these past 2 years have allowed me to gain more insight also into what I need. Because as parents, we have to take care of ourselves as well. I feel I'm at a point now I'm supposed to possibly be going back next year. That'll be interesting. I felt ready, and I'm going to, yeah, I feel I'm in a much better place to give accordingly now.
Right. So let's dive in with Vada. Can you first, that's a beautiful name. Where did that name come from?
From the movie My Girl. Yeah. Did you see
I
that
thought
one?
it was familiar. I was like, I've heard that before. That is beautiful. I love it. So tell me about her journey and her story, and let's start at the beginning.
Okay. Yeah. So we didn't get her diagnosis until February of 2021, but we were in search of it, I would say, from the moment she was maybe 5 months.
So how old was she when you got the diagnosis?
She would have been 4.
Okay.
Or just about. Yeah, actually, she was just turned. Yes. So,
yeah, go ahead.
So we, from a young age, when she was a baby, she wasn't babbling or even the very beginning sounds like the ba ba ba. She was grunting, and at first it's funny, right? Everyone's laughing, but I have a background in autism therapy. So I would work with SLPs, OTs, and I was just in that world of, I guess, like atypical health needs and just stuff that goes on with kiddos that need a little extra help. So immediately I'm zoned in, and my gut intuition, I think, is a real strong thing that we need to listen to. And I just knew. So as soon as she started getting a bit older, approaching the 1 year mark, I was calling our local Kids Ability, and they'll help out with this kind of thing. And they were pushing me off because she was so young. So we started as soon as she was about 15 to 18 months, we started in-home speech therapy, because she was still just grunting. She wasn't making any words. But I realized she was grunting the amount of syllables for a word that she wanted and stringing together a sentence of grunts. But we taught her signs. So through her sign language, her gesturing, and situational, what was going on, we knew what she was asking, but it sounded like a string of grunts put together. So eventually she was diagnosed with childhood apraxia of speech. And this was I would say, the first step in us discovering her 22 diagnosis. It really opened a lot of doors. And she was in intensive therapy at home 3 days a week, and her speech was coming quickly. I was becoming involved in the community. We would do the walk, and I would be on the Facebook groups. And one day there was a comment made from somebody on the Facebook group saying, childhood apraxia of speech is most commonly a symptom of a much larger diagnosis. And because at the time I thought, okay, it's apraxia, like that's what's going on. She did have lower muscle tone, but through my research, I realized, well, a lot of kiddos with apraxia of speech, it also affects their muscle tone throughout their body, or it can. So I just put those two together. But that comment really stuck with me. And so she was seeing our pediatrician for low muscle tone, her speech. She had a bit of which she still has. It looks like torticollis. It presents like dystonia or torticollis, but it's not. No one can figure it out. She had very excessive thirst. So just all of these little things. And then seeing that comment kind of made me think something more is going on.
When you saw that comment, did you keep it to yourself or did you share it?
I shared it with her therapist that we were seeing for specialized speech therapy in apraxia. And she was like, yeah, that's true. She's like, I saw that comment on the group also, and it could have come across as a little harsh, but I'm like, no, I appreciated seeing it. It was also a bit of a punch to the gut, because you're like, oh no, it's hard to see. But I think without seeing that, I wouldn't have continued to push, because our next step, I requested a microarray test be done because of that comment.
And you got that through your pediatrician, or did you go to geneticists?
Yeah, so we went to our pediatrician, and we'd been seeing him a lot, and there were no answers. So on that comment underneath on the thread, somebody had actually suggested that test. So I requested it, and he said, yes, no problem. But I don't know how it is in different parts of Canada or in the States, but it takes quite a while to get those test results back. An excruciating 9 months.
Wow, you guys took you 9 months. Wow. So I've heard an array of 2 weeks, 8 weeks, 9 months.
9 months was, yeah. So we were waiting, and I kind of forgot. I didn't forget about it, but I placed it on the back burner thinking, I guess naively, I didn't think anything would come back either on it. It wasn't a rush to me. But funny enough, we were a couple months out. We were planning on going to Florida, taking the kids to Disney. And my sister-in-law, she is the president of a rare disease foundation, Fabry Association. And they were meeting in Orlando, Florida, for a rare disease conference internationally. So we had specialists and geneticists coming from all over to meet and talk about all these different types of rare diseases and genetic conditions. So we were thinking, if something did pop up on this test, what an amazing place to be. We were planning our Disney trip around this conference. So my husband is also on this board with her. So we thought we'll be around professionals within all of these areas. So I started calling the pediatrician, and he's like, still nothing. And I'm checking almost bi-weekly. And then I called him a few days before our trip. I'm like, listen, it's been 9 months. And he gave us the number to the reports lab where they get the reports. So on our way to Toronto to fly out, I called and I got into the lab and talked to a technician or somebody who's working in there. And they're like, how did you get this number? And I just kind of explained the urgency, and there were Vada's results right on the table in a pile. So he had them ready. They faxed them over to our doctor's office, and then we received them 2 days later.
Were you relieved that you were getting these papers, or what was that like for you?
Yes, I was relieved, again, thinking nothing was going to show up. We went to Disney, we opened it, we went to bed, got there late. Then the next morning, we're getting ready to go to the Magic Kingdom, and I see the email come through, and we opened it. And I still don't know why it didn't register with me when I read it. My husband's reading it, and I still took it as a possibility. So I don't know if that was just my mind going into protection mode. You're taking the kids to Disney for the first time today, but it didn't register with me that she had a diagnosis. And then we go spend the day at Disney. We have a great time. And then my husband and I are talking more about it in the evening, and he's telling me, no, this is a definitive diagnosis. She has this 22q11.2 deletion syndrome. So I took it in, and then of course I Googled it, and it is such a wide spectrum of severity and symptoms. Like some kiddos have major heart defects, some don't have any. That was probably not the best thing to do, but because we had never heard of it, that was what we did. And
I was just going to ask, what made you open it up while on vacation?
I think a few things. We had been waiting so long. We needed it for this trip because 2 days later we were going to be attending this conference and around all of these professionals. So we wanted to know. I mean, it could have waited a day or two. And I think I was quite naive to thinking there was going to be a diagnosis on it.
You're a concerned mom, and you sound very optimistic, and you're hoping for the best. You're hoping she's okay.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is,
And getting the diagnosis there and then going and spending the time at Magic Kingdom for a couple of days, I think it was maybe a bit of a blessing too. It settled in our minds and then we were distracted in a really fun, great way with the kids. I will say though, after once we went to the conference and then the first thing I got to do was sit down with a geneticist who went over all of the medical aspects of it and how, like, what it actually is, not one to be looking at DNA and chromosomes and right. So
yeah,
I was very overwhelmed when I was reading about that. So she laid it out very clearly and helped me understand it that way. But then I think the sadness of it for me personally really sunk in. I think I had one of my first like panic attacks and I was just, yeah, sad. I think sad and scared.
Mhm.
Scared of the unknown, thinking about the future and what this diagnosis now changes for her future or doesn't.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
What a blessing that you got to sit down with a geneticist a
Right?
few days after getting a diagnosis. I mean, think about how many other families could benefit from that.
100%. It was a gift. And she gave
Yeah.
me quite a bit of time. And then also my sister-in-law, she is very well versed in all things medical. And because of Fabre, she has Fabre, and then she's on the head of this association. She has a lot of this medical knowledge as well. So she would draw it out for me. And it was a blessing that we found out when we did, as hard
Mhm.
as it was. We had this incredible network around us at that time.
Yeah. You got the diagnosis, you got a few answers at the conference, you come home and you're
Mhm.
dealing with this overwhelming feeling of grief and
Mhm.
sadness and uncertainty for the future.
Yeah.
How did you start to navigate that for yourself? I'm just curious
No, for sure.
because I went through it. I know many families do and many parents do because it's your baby.
Right? It is such an unknown. Most people haven't heard of TOQ, so you're dealing with this new diagnosis and then how it's going to affect your child and your family, and it really does affect the entire family. And as hard as that time was, I think it's so important and it's crucial that people do hear about what it's like to get that diagnosis, because I know going through it myself, another mother reached out to me that had gone through it, and that was a saving grace. It was a short conversation, but it really helped me in that time. Yeah, we came home and you're back to reality. You're not at Disney. There's no parades or fireworks. You're just sitting in this new diagnosis. Looking back, I think I definitely fell into a depression. I was grieving like my daughter that was here and doing great, but I was grieving maybe even my own expectations for what her future would look like. Looking back now, I think maybe I was justified in those feelings, but I'm like, oh, I wish I could have told myself, like, don't waste all this energy worrying about something that hasn't happened down the line. I was very focused on what does this make her future look like? How is this going to affect her health wise, like mental health wise, and just being able to function in society? That was my major concern at that time.
Yeah, I think that's very normal. And I think the journey for parents and caregivers of children with 22q, that grief is ongoing. It's the grief of the child you thought you would have.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's not,
exactly.
it doesn't mean you love them any less. And it doesn't
No,
mean
goodness,
it at all. But that's a piece of it too. It's like, why am I feeling this grief? They're
yeah,
here,
right.
they're amazing, but it is a layer of grief for any diagnosis for any kid, not just 22q. When your
Mhm.
kid is diagnosed with something, you then begin grieving the child that you had
Yeah.
envisioned. And I know I go through that as well. And thank you for sharing that. It's part of the journey. So as she got the diagnosis, her speech was one of the main things you were focusing on. What else
Mhm.
started to appear now that you had the diagnosis? Did you start to go to different specialists? Tell me about that.
It did take a while. There's a 22Q clinic at Sick Kids in Toronto, which has been great. Before that, she was seeing, like, we had her all of these specialist appointments because of little, I call them oddities. That's something with 22Q that has just keeps me on my toes. there's just all of these little odd aspects of things that happen in your child. And then you try to get answers. So you're going to a doctor for like hormones, you're going to a doctor for bones, heart, lungs, kidneys, like blood work coming out of the wazoo, like there's just eyes, everything. So all of these appointments were very hard to juggle. And then eventually she got into the TQ clinic at Sick Kids, and they kind of took over a lot of scheduling those appointments and keeping on top of that stuff for me. So that was another reason that I took that first year off of work, because of all of these specialists that no one was telling me you need to go here, here, here. Like our pediatrician didn't even know. So I was like requesting this appointment, requesting this, and to juggle those all. And then what they're saying we need to do and who they say we need to see was too much. So I feel, once we did get that diagnosis and the Q clinic took over a big chunk of that, that was a huge relief.
Yeah. I'm sure being able to not work was a huge relief for you too, because not every family can do that. I did that. You have to survive, to mentally survive the diagnosis and all the doctor's appointments and all the unexpected news you're going to be getting over the next couple months with diagnosis.
That's just it. It's mentally and emotionally exhausting, because not only are you juggling all of these appointments and but it's also what could be. They thought at one point she had an extreme thirst. So almost a compulsion to continue to drink a lot of water all the time. She was drinking insane amounts. So she was seeing quite a few specialists for this, and they were thinking maybe she has a brain tumor. So you hear that and you're just like, oh my goodness. So not only am I juggling all of this, but now I have to really, really be concerned about what's going on inside of her body and what the actual cause to all of these symptoms are that she's showing. So we did end up taking her, she had 2 days of water deprivation tests.
Wow.
Yeah, which was no food or water for 24 hours.
Oh my goodness.
They'd check blood and urine every hour, and they both came back inconclusive. So there, a lot of things for Vada have been no answer. And then it just turns into something else. And then eventually we do get an answer.
Yeah. So what was the answer for that?
So they thought, they did the water deprivation test to see if it was diabetes insipidus, and it's ruled out now. It is not. It's called psychogenic. Yeah. So it is a very compulsion to drink water, excessive thirst, but it did end her up in the hospital, and she had to be flown to the children's hospital. Yeah, her one pediatrician at the time had put her on a medication that a lot of kids are on for bedwetting. They were kind of, does the chicken come before the egg kind of deal, because no one could figure this excessive thirst out. And it could be 2Q related. It could not be. In my gut, I feel it's one of those 22Q oddities. Something's causing it. But she started this medication, and it was making her retain water, to see if she was just drinking so much because she was urinating so much. So with that, and then her large water consumption, which was measured, we measured her water every day, but she would sneak it from taps. And she ended up going into a major fit of seizures that lasted about 12 hours.
Oh my gosh.
It was pretty bad. When I found her, it didn't look good. It did not look good. They flew her to McMaster in Hamilton Kids Hospital. And then so they had figured out it was her sodium levels were wiped. Yeah. So then they started her slowly on the sodium drip, because there can be brain damage if the intake of that is too quickly after being so depleted.
Wow.
But yeah, so thank goodness that.
So the sodium, is that because of the excessive water drinking, or just, it was?
So in combination with that medication that was prescribed to her, which I was giving her, I think, a quarter of what she was prescribed.
Oh my gosh.
She was sick, so I cut it way back. But in combination with that drug that made her retain water, she was just...
It affected her sodium.
So much. Yeah. So now we had to slowly, I would say, like, desensitize her to drinking so much water. slowly over time measuring and sending certain amounts to school, and everybody knew to watch her with water. Now she's been at the point for about 6 to 8 months where it's no longer measured, it's under control, and she can handle it. She's come very far in that, because that started as a baby.
Yeah.
Couldn't get enough water.
I haven't heard of that before. So thank you for.
I hadn't either.
No, that must have been so incredibly scary and stressful for you and your husband.
It was definitely another piece that kind of pushed us towards finding the 22q diagnosis, because we needed answers, and it just pushed us to ask for more tests.
Yeah. So I'm so glad to hear that she's doing better and that the water intake has finally figured out a routine and an answer for her so that she stays safe. Wow. Is she still on that medication as well?
That was stopped immediately.
Good.
I had actually stopped it a few days prior to this happening, but it was just, yeah. Again, mom's intuition.
Yeah. I was going to say, what made you kind of have a gut feeling about it?
A gut feeling, really.
Yeah.
Like, if I would have been giving her the full amount, I don't know if it would have happened sooner or if it would have been worse. I don't know. But
Right.
yeah, I think it's really important within, this is something I've really learned through Vada's journey. It's okay to really question things within healthcare and to really advocate and push. And sometimes it feels uncomfortable and you feel awkward because you're asking, somebody who went to school for 8 years, but like, it's okay. This is still your child, and mother's intuition and your gut. If you're being told to ask something, don't ever hesitate to ask and push and ask more.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And it is. And if you've never had to be an advocate in that way, it does feel very, very odd. But good for you for listening and listening to your gut and not just doing exactly what you're told. We do not on this podcast want to bash doctors or anybody and medical professionals, because we need them and they're amazing. But I'm talking more along the lines of knowing when to trust your gut and knowing your kid and your situation, because they are all different.
They're all different. And you see them, the whole them, all of the time, every day. So you should have more inkling of, we should look into this or
Right. It's a team. It's you saying, no, I know my child. I know that this medication isn't working. I'm letting you know. How can we fix this? Yeah, no, excellent. Thank you for sharing that. And is there anything else that Vada is working on right now or that you're concerned with medical wise?
A couple of things. She does have a heart defect, which is being monitored. She's got a bicuspid aortic valve. So as it's okay right now, it's not leaking, but they're just going to monitor it. And they were surprised it didn't get picked up in utero, because a lot of kids with 22q, those heart defects are picked up and then they'll test for 22q. And sometimes hers was not picked up. And we found that out 3 years ago, between 2.5, 3 years ago. So she just had it checked again recently and it hasn't changed. It's quite petite in stature. So as she grows, then it could. So they think eventually there will need to be some intervention. But as of right now, we're just monitoring that. Some stuff with her kidneys, they're monitoring. They're not sure if it's kidney stones forming or not. So with calcium, like the calcium buildups and going through calcium. She also had one of her thyroid hormones was high, which can explain some issues with the low calcium levels. So we're just monitoring that. A lot of monitoring right now. And then her neck, they're not sure what's going on with that, but she's receiving Botox injections in her neck to help straighten and strengthen those muscles. She's been in physio for 6 years of her life, of her second.
Yeah.
We're trying to avoid neck surgery. So we're going to every possible scenario of what we can do prior to do that, because that's not ideal. And then I think the other things would be mental health kind of stuff has been a big part of our 2Q journey, probably one of the biggest, actually.
How so?
She's come so far, but there was quite a bit of anxieties and symptoms. She's not diagnosed with OCD or sensory, like a sensory diagnosis, but she has symptoms of both.
Mm-hmm.
So sensory, and I know this is very common within the 22q community, but her sensory issues with how things feel, to the point of she'd be up like 15 times a night because of her sheets.
Got it.
So
So it's
about
impeding on her sleep, which then affects the rest of her
everybody.
day. Yeah.
Yeah, it was getting pretty bad. And then I would say about a year and a half ago, we figured that out.
Mm-hmm.
So slowly again, desensitizing her. And we started with like play couch on her mattress and then just slowly trying different sheets and now she's okay. It was almost retraining her brain that the odd feeling is okay. It still is an issue, but it's not affecting her day-to-day life. Her pants, like she's very particular. She'll go from tights to now joggings to right now wide legs, which are very on trend. So it's nice because I can pick them up, but she will only wear wide leg pants. It doesn't sound like much, but those little things they affect almost everything you do within a day, whether you're sitting and you have hair, a loose hair in your face, and it would cause major, major tantrums and meltdowns. And yeah. So we were always feeling like we were on eggshells to make sure things would be okay, or you're like putting out a fire before it turns into a full out explosion.
And if you don't mind, did you find a sheet that she really liked that you wouldn't mind sharing, just in case any other families are experiencing the same sort of?
Right. So we went through quite a few sheets, and what we realized, it was a combination between the sheet and feeling the mattress bumps. Like, the stone, a mattress design. And then we got rid of the mattress protector because that caused more wrinkles. But for sheets, we couldn't figure anything out. So we actually bought one of those play couches.
Okay.
They like fold out flat. So we started with her sleeping on top of that on the floor because there are no sheets. And then the covers are tight and they come off and they're washable. The one we got was the Joey. And so she was sleeping on that. Then we moved it onto the bed. And then the next thing we tried once she was in her bed was a thicker, one of those super soft, I think we got it from HomeSense, just a super soft, plush, fuzzy type of blanket, like a throw blanket, not an actual sheet. But we laid that under her because it was a bit thicker. And we just recently, this is probably a year and a half now, we've been using that. She's now on a plain sheet. So just step by step, that's how we found success with it. The sheets, just because they move and she would feel them move, it just didn't work. But the play couch zipped right up. Yeah.
You're an amazing mom. You are.
I'm just
That's
trying.
a lot. I know, but you have 2 kids and you just want her to sleep. So you did all of that so your daughter could sleep. And it's those struggles that maybe your friends, and I'm tearing up, maybe your friends and family like don't see.
Right. I know.
And don't know how stressful it is to find your kid's sheets that she can sleep. And it's those things that they need to hear. Yeah. And also understand that it's not that your daughter's being difficult. It's that she truly doesn't like the feeling of that sheet because it bothers her down to her nerves and her sensory function that she cannot get comfortable. And it's really hard sometimes for people that aren't in this world and don't have kiddos that struggle with sensory to understand that and just say, oh, just buy him a fleece sheet. She'll be fine. And it's like, if you only knew. How many sheet sets did you buy?
Times I was up last night.
Yeah.
We were all losing sleep. Get up very angry and would not go to bed. And it was like we all needed sleep. It's been life-changing. But you're right, it's so hard to explain that to others. And I think living the little oddities that we live every day and the little struggles that are easy to just talk about, but different when you're experiencing them, it is a lonely feeling. I don't try, even when I'm sharing with family or friends what's our current struggle, or oh my goodness, I didn't sleep, I don't want to go into it too much. I'm not looking for sympathy. It's hard to explain. It's lonely, I think. Way.
Absolutely. Yeah. and you're trying your hardest and it's still not working. So you're just, and there's no answer sometimes. You just got to do what you did. You bought a couch and you put it on the bed. You just have to try the simplest things and it works. And so thank you for sharing your sheet journey with me. But what other struggles do you feel might be within your life and Veda's life that people may not see or understand? What other things while trying to navigate her 22q have you faced?
I think just the knowledge of having a child with a diagnosis that is at so many biological risks for things within development, things within learning, health, obviously. It's a burden. It's not, and not that I'm happy that I was chosen to carry this for her, but it's a burden that's not seen. It's experienced every day. And yeah, I think that would be the difference between what other people are experiencing with like typical children. And that's probably the hardest thing, or maybe that would be nice to have understanding around. That's an area that I've struggled with, just having, and that's something I would like to involve myself in the 22 community more. So I think the past couple of years have been really good for me to focus on our family and myself and getting to a really strong place. But I would like to, be involved within the community more and meet more moms or families and children that are going through this, because what a support that would be to lean on as well and just share with and listen, because they get at least some of it. Their experience is of course different, but there's so many commonalities between these families.
No, definitely. And if you had to describe Veda with one word, what word would you use?
She is just love. Like she's hilarious as well, but she is just love. Like anybody, even children that meet her. There's this one little girl in her class, and her mom messaged me the other day and she said, I just have to share with you what my daughter said about Veda tonight. Just that she has the most special, sweetest heart. And I'm like, and I've heard this kind of anyone I feel that meets, and I know this is very common within the 22 community as well. Like, how lucky are we? But she's so empathetic and compassionate towards others. And even at such a young age, to be aware of the feelings of adults in the room or other children, and really caring about making sure everyone's in a good space. And so I would she's just love.
Yeah. There is an innocence with them, isn't there? It's just genuine innocence and love.
Right?
Yeah, for everyone. That's great. And what is she into? What does she enjoy?
Well, she loves art.
With her.
She's very artistic. She loves drawing, anything outside. She's into helping out a lot lately, which is hilarious because she can be quite messy, but particular in the same sense. And the other day I heard, we were out gardening and she's been really excited to help me garden. And I heard some like tinkering around in the kitchen. And I thought she was in the snack cupboard because she also loves to snack. And I'm like, Veda, what are you doing in there? And she's just up cleaning dishes. Not the best. They did then have to go to the dishwasher.
I was going to say that could be amazing, but not the best. I get it. Mm-hmm.
We're working on it. We're refining those skills. But just, she had her stool up and she's scrubbing dishes. And then she looks at me and she's like, I'm cleaning the dishes. I'm like, okay. She's like, you better not forget to get me some payment after that.
Girl knows.
So she's into gymnastics and just loves time with her friends. We try to plan a play date almost every weekend for her.
Good. Sounds delightful. If you could go back in time for when you got her 22q diagnosis, you got that email and you were reading it, what would you go back in time and tell yourself now that you've lived? It's been 5 years with the diagnosis?
Like 3.5.
Okay. Yeah. So if you could go back in time to when you got the email of her diagnosis of 22q, what would you tell yourself in that moment of uncertainty?
I would tell myself what this one mom actually reached out to me when we got home from Florida and I was in a dark spot. We connected somehow over Facebook and she's like, can I give you a call? And she called me and she said, everything that 22Q has given your daughter, and her daughter is around the same age. She said, I look at my daughter and I think, I would not change a thing about you, because if I changed your 22Q, that would change who you are. Oh, it was exactly what I needed to hear in that moment. And it did change my outlook. And I think I would have told myself something similar. This diagnosis is a piece of her, and it has made her who she is. And I wouldn't want to change her. Of course, I would take away, the health risks and the hard things, but in all, I think let go of expectations of the future. Nobody knows what anybody's future is going to look like. So why waste worry on that, and just focus on every amazing thing about her. And it's great to celebrate. I feel like anything she does, I'm just even more like, wow, and yes, go Vada. So it's not, there are definitely hard things about 22Q, and there's daily hard things, and there's still hard thoughts, but just to know that the future can still be so amazing for them. I think they're special, and they do have special little hearts.
Yeah, well said. And what do you feel Vada has taught you about yourself through all of this?
That is such a good question. I was actually just thinking about this the other day, how she's taught me so much. She's taught me about just appreciating like the beauty in the world, because we get so busy, and she'll tell me, oh, but mommy, just look how beautiful that is. And just those moments. And it's like, that's what's important. You're right, Vada. Like, let's stop and let's go look at the sunset, or she makes me pause. And I think she's taught me so much, but I think she's really forced me in a way to like grow from who I was, and I was content with being. But yeah, she showed me that for her, I want to be the best. And I know how I am affects her. Like my energy and my patience affects her. And I'm not always calm, and I'm not always perfect. But she makes me want to continue to just be better for her. And because I think I deserve that too. Like I see her trying every day and how much she grows, and we all deserve to, be the best versions of ourselves.
Yeah. And if she ever listens to this, what would you want her to know from her mom?
Think of that.
To this years from now, what do you want to tell her?
You're going to make me tear up with this one. Just that I am so thankful for her, and that, I feel blessed that I get to be her mom. As hard as times have been and the struggles that we've gone through together, I feel nothing but gratitude for her, and for her being my daughter and me getting to be her mom in this life. Like, what a blessing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you want to mention before we end today?
I just send love out to all of the other parents with cute kiddos, and it can be a lonely feeling or like isolated at times, but I think there is such a great community out there to lean into, which I plan on doing more myself, because I think like we can only benefit from that and learn together, because there are still so many questions out there, like these leg pains and all of these little things that come up. And so just know you're doing what you can, and your best is better for your child than you probably acknowledge or even think it is. We are lucky to have these little ones and to be on this journey with them. So I'm just sending my love to all of the families out there.
I love it. Thank you, Jill. And thank you for sharing today and Vada. And I wish you all nothing but the best. So thank you again for being on.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jill, for sharing your wonderful little girl with us today and being so honest about your lonely feelings at times and the importance of speaking up as an advocate for your child. I wish you and Vada and your entire family nothing but the best. Thank you again. And for anyone interested in learning more about the 22Q podcast, or if you're interested on being on an episode, feel free to reach out to me at 22qpodcast@gmail.com and share your story with me. Until next time, I want to thank everyone for listening. Continue to share, like, and tell people about this podcast so we can spread the word about 22Q. And to all the 22Q families out there, remember that you are not alone.